Hey, Gary here. Welcome to BookMob episode 107. And today I'm going to be talking about this new New York Times bestseller, The End of the World as We Know It. Now, this is one of those, I guess you could call it a tribute anthology. It adds to the Stephen King's novel, The Stand. And I'm sure it's been done before, but I couldn't find any information on any previous novels. But Stephen King's The Stand, if you've read it, I've read it about twice. The second reading was great. First reading, I was probably a bit too sort of young to really understand what was going on. But the second reading of The Stand proved to me that this is a great story written by a consummate storyteller. Now, The End of the World as We Know It is a companion piece of short stories written by writers who are telling the story of The Stand from an independent viewpoint. It's kind of like a franchise. It's kind of, they've taken The Stand and then they've introduced through this actual novel the universe at the same time The Stand was written. So I think the novel takes place in the late 80s or early 90s. And obviously these stories have been written in the 21st century. And so they hark back to the original feeling, the original ideas, the characters, the dreaming, the sense of the good versus evil. You've got the walking man, you've got the old woman at the farmhouse. And through these great, really well-written, fun, entertaining stories, and it's a massive read. I think about how many pages we've got. It's almost like 750 pages of multiple stories. If you're a Stephen King fan, you should really read it. If you're not a Stephen King fan, read it anyway. And if I said to you, do you need to have read The Stand by Stephen King in order for this to have the full literary entertainment effect? Yes, but at the same time, you can read this as a standalone without any knowledge of The Stand. If you just do your own cursory checks of the novel The Stand by Stephen King before you start this, to give you an idea of where the stories are coming from and what the stories are about. And each and every story in here is an independent voice in a universe about the end of the world. A plague strikes the world, and there's this ongoing, the battle between good and evil. The walking man is kind of like the devil, and the old woman is kind of like, I wouldn't say Jesus or in a religious sense, but more of a metaphorical figure of hope, well-being, and community. Whereas the walking man, the devil, is this nasty piece of shit who does his best to try and win the battle of humans in the ultimate battle of good versus evil. So if you have not read The Stand, I highly recommend that you do. If you have read The Stand, I can highly recommend The End of the World as We Know It. Multiple stories, really interesting caricatures, some good ideas, and it does fit right into the universe of the novel The Stand by Stephen King. One of those wonderful sort of creative franchises that some publisher or the editors, Christopher Golden and Brian Keene, have come up with. They came up with this idea. They actually wrote to Stephen King thinking that Stephen King was going to say no, but Stephen King said, hey, what a great idea. So it expands an original idea, The Stand, into a universal idea. And the stories are split into, I think it's 3 different stages to sort of correspond with the stages in the novel. And you got the first part is with when the sickness, the virus first attacks the humanity. Then you've got the long walk as the people who have chosen sides, so to speak, either go to Boulder, Colorado, or Las Vegas, Nevada, to continue the battle versus good and evil. And then Other Worlds and These, which is the third part, which is the kind of not reconciliation, but it's kind of like a start of a new beginning of what happens. I would say that out of all the franchised ideas, this is pretty much the best one. I couldn't put this down. You know, great stories. You can read a story a night or 2 stories a day and get a full blast of entertainment from a book. And again, I remind you, there's nothing better than holding a book in your hand. And when we go to that, I'm moving my current apartment, and I've had to get rid of, I think so far I've out of my library behind me and around me, I've got rid of about 80 books. It was really hard decision, you know, to cull my library, because in the future I'm going to probably be, you know, I'm a renter, so I'll probably be moving every couple of years, and the older I get, the harder it is to actually move hundreds and hundreds of books in boxes. So I've decided I'm going to really minimize my collection and try and create a library that once I pass this mortal coil, people can either take my books or put them in the pit. It doesn't matter. Anyway, this is a good book. The End of the World as We Know It. New Tales of Stephen King's The Stand. Highly recommend it. Great read. So entertaining. And if you're going on a long trip to from Australia to England or to the States, this book would be a great companion piece to ease that long journey. It's escapist. It's well written. The stories are really, really engrossing. I mean, there's a couple of duds in there, but overall, the stories are just superb, and I highly recommend you guys have a look at it. All right, that's it for episode 107. Thanks for coming. What am I reading next? Well, at the moment, my reading has slowed down because I'm in the process of moving and boxing up my books. So I'm kind of just finished The End of the World as We Know It, and I don't really want to buy any new books, and I don't want to find any new books to read. So I'm probably going to be reading something that I've already got, and my eyes are on David Foster Wallace and Infinite Jest, because it's a novel that I read or try to read, and I think I really need to have a serious look at that book again. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Remember, just send us an email or a text if you want to find out anything more about BookMob and any ideas about books that you want covered. Please let me know. Have a great week. Remember, buy books, don't steal books, borrow books, but give them back, and just read. Enjoy reading, and try to buy books that you want to keep. Real books. I mean, you know what? Kindle's great, but at the end of the day, there's nothing better than opening a book in bed or on the balcony having a drink, and real books are great books. All right, thanks. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.